Hi, everyone. So you've probably heard, on average, it takes 7 seconds to make a first impression. Have you judged me? It's okay. I'm sure you have. You're thinking, she's blonde, she looks tall, must have been a swimsuit model. Well, now I'm a communication coach and an EQ coach. And I wasn't always a trainer, though. 15 years ago, I was living a double life. I mean, professionally, I was working with some of Canada's best brands. I had an awesome team. I had a sexy office. I mean, I was killing it from 9 to 5. But in my personal relationships, I was struggling. I had 2 failed marriages. I had completely given up on finding Mr. Right. And research was telling me that the future, it didn't look that bright. Statistically, the number one reason that relationships fail is poor communication. And I was in communication. So learning how to communicate, to connect with people, well, it became an obsession of mine. I mean, I entered into a decade of self-development. I call it my decade of self-development. And I was just so passionately driven to find the key to effective communication. I read everything. I mean, I was on a mission. I set goals to think and grow rich. Every day I practiced the 7 habits of highly effective people. I tried to shift from good to great. I made 4 agreements. I blinked and stumbled over the tipping point, and I'm telling you, I had an uncomfortable 4-hour work week. I mean, it took deep work, grit, and drive to win friends and influence people. And I embraced all of my superpowers: the power of intention, the power of attraction, and the power of now. I mean, I moved the cheese, I ate the frog, I did it all. And for short stints of time, I'd see some improvement, but nothing really long lasting. Until 15 years ago, I stumbled upon a book. Well, it changed my life. And what I learned is the secret, in a nutshell, what I learned is the secret to engaging and connecting with people in your sales, in your marketing, even in your relationships. And so that secret is the sole reason I'm here with you today. I want to share that with you so you can experience the power of that as well. Now, before I get into it, because I'm going to share 3 ways that you specifically can create content in your sales and marketing to be more engaging and magnetic at work and at home. But before we do that, I just want to get a sense of who's here with me, right? So I'm going to pull up the chat. And I'd love it if you could play along with me. You know, there's even prizes for people that participate, so this would be great. So what I'd love to know is who here has had formal communication skills training? So if you've had formal communication skills training, please put the word training in the chat. Yeah, I can see some people starting to do that. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. And I would think that we're probably going to have a high number of people because we're on a communication coaching event. For those of you that didn't answer that, let's try another question here. So if you've improved your communication skills by, reading a book or listening to a podcast like my magnetic communication podcast, every week I give 10-minute tips to communicate better. Go ahead and put resource in the chat. Let's see how many people here are using, resource to better their communication skills. Awesome. Yeah, seeing a few more there. Thank you. Thank you for playing. I mean, it's great. I love the interaction. And hey, the more you do it, the more prizes you'll win, right? So last question I have for you, so I can get a sense of the room. Who here has found that they've improved their communication skills by making mistakes or after your divorce? Go ahead and put the word mistake in the chat. Now, this is when it typically blows up, right? Then it blows, it's going really fast. But the thing that's interesting is that many of us have not learned formal communication skills training, and we've learned to communicate better by failing at communicating. Many of us haven't been trained in formal communication skills. And this is showing up at work and at home. Like maybe you're having trouble getting clients to convert. Maybe you're having trouble with your team members or even your loved ones, getting them to do what you're asking them to do. Or maybe you're finding that you're making costly mistakes at work. Well, you're not alone. Gartner research found that 70% of a company's mistakes are due to poor communication. 70%. And this is also the first time in history that we have 5 generations working together in the workplace. And we speak differently depending on our age. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I had this young assistant ask me out for a break because she had some nice tea for me. And I thought, oh, she's so sweet. She knows that I love tea. And so I was excited. I'm like, is she going to bring me chamomile or oolong? And what I quickly realized is that the tea that she was referring to was company gossip. And so while I didn't get my oolong or my chamomile, I did find out that our supplier Chuck was having an affair. So we are communicating. Oh, the chat's going on. Let me just roll down. Yeah, if you're laughing, then you put some emojis in there. I can't see you, but I can actually see your chat. So I'd love to hear that and see that participation. That's awesome. So thank you. Yeah, that's great. That makes me happy. Thank you. So, you know, we are communicating a lot. We've got all these ways to communicate more than ever, right? And, you know, the trouble is we're communicating a lot, but that's not the same thing as communicating successfully. I'm going to repeat that because it's really important. Communicating a lot is not the same thing as communicating successfully, actually connecting with people. As I said, we have more ways than ever to communicate. I mean, you can talk to someone every day and still communicate badly. Anyone married? So we also have AI that's helping us to communicate even more efficiently, right? Quicker. And it's taking some of the work out of coming up with the concepts and the creative. So, you know, but is the question I have around AI is it's going to make you more efficient, of course, and lots of people use it. But is it truly landing and connecting with your target audience? Is that content truly connecting? Now, I'm going to share on my screen here, and I'm going to go into immediately what we need to be aware of. Give me 2 seconds here. What we need to be aware of, I love this AI guy, it's so cool. What we need to be aware of is the true barrier that we need to break. Now, the true barrier we need to break is what I call thought flow. And so thought flow is all the things that are going on in our brain, our inner chatter, our critic, our to-do list, all the things that are happening in our brain. And we're so preoccupied, right? So for your message, your sales and your marketing, even your message for your loved one, to break through that preoccupation, it needs to connect. So how do we do that? You know, it's interesting. This thought flow is just not my concept. Queen's research did this, or Queen's University did this research, and they found that the average thoughts that we have on a day are 6,200. 6,200 thoughts we have in our brain every day. And of those thoughts, 80% are negative. And of those thoughts, 95% of those are repetitive. So what does that mean? It means that we've got this, we're creating our own mental playlist, right? We're the DJs of our brain, and we've got this mental playlist looping over and over and over again in our brain. And so if that's the case, how are we possibly going to decide what we choose to let into our brain, what message we're actually going to listen to, and what message we're going to act on? I want you to give me a little indication in chat, if you will, please. Just use one word and say what's going on in your thought flow, right? What is, oh, hold on a second here. What's happening in your thought flow? Are you thinking about health? Are you thinking about clients? What brought you here today? You know, so give me an idea of the internal dialogue that's happening with your thought flow. You know, maybe it's family, maybe it's health, maybe it's fitness, maybe it's clients, business, money. Yes. You know, we've got a bunch of things that are looping constantly in our brain. Work, yes, thank you. And happiness, awesome. Purpose, thank you. Business, yes. So that's what we need to be aware of, is that we have to break through that preoccupation. We don't do this lightly. So what's the secret? The secret to share with you is that the way to break through preoccupation, the way to actually get someone to listen and act from your message, is to communicate with our emotional motivators. So we're going to talk about that today. I want to share with you that I've been into communication since I was a kid. I say that it was in my blood because my mom was a psychologist, and I was always fascinated, even as a young child, what words to use to motivate someone to listen or act. I mean, here I am with my sister making her drink the lemonade, but essentially, what actually motivates people to act and how powerful those words can be. And this actually started happening as early as junior high. I had other kids coming up to me and saying, "Hey, Sandy, what do I say to get my parents to say yes?" So I've been always consumed with and curious about the power of words. Aren't you curious? Like what your clients, what your potential customers, what your team, what your loved ones need to hear from you to be motivated to listen and act? What's going to motivate them to yes? See, my curiosity has led me to understand over the years what ignites a customer to action, what engages an employee, and what leads a team to victory. When you use emotional motivators in your content, in your sales, and in your marketing messaging, what you're doing is you're making that content engaging and magnetic. And magnetic communication gets your customers to say yes, gets a yes from your employees, and yes in your personal relationships too. So I want to take a step back and give you an idea here of, I didn't have this all sorted out. I mean, I was basically, in my first business, I was a marketer. And, I was a single mom. I started the business in my bedroom. Okay, I got to be clear. It was not a bedroom business. It was a marketing consultancy in the bedroom. Okay, we're clear? All right, so I quickly realized I'm a marketer, but I'm not a salesperson. So I needed sales, and I needed them quick. So I went to networking events. And I went to these networking events, and I would look around the room, and I was so intimidated by these successful looking people that I spent most of my time hiding in the bathroom. And it's very difficult to nurture a lead from inside the stall. So around this time, struggling, searching for tools and sales techniques and all these things, that's when I stumbled upon the book that I mentioned that changed my life. And here it is, The Magic Power of Emotional Appeal by Roy Garn. Now, this is a book from the 60s, and you imagine how many rabbit holes I went down to find this thing. But the book was done with thousands of people in the 60s, done this research that revealed the emotional appeal theory. And this was 4 emotional appeals that motivate everybody to listen and act. And I'd never heard of this before. And so I just dug into that book, and I'm telling you, it left me stunned. All of a sudden, I realized why I made the choices that I had in my personal and my professional relationships. I mean, it all just started to make so much sense. It just fit into place. And what was clear to me is that Garn's emotional appeals, well, they worked more like magnets because we attract or repel people based on our understanding of their needs. And more importantly, if we're able to communicate that understanding with them. So once I realized that emotional motivators were actually dictating what people choose to listen to, what people choose to act from, this was just huge. I started thinking, as a marketer, this is gold, right? So then now what I did is I started going to networking events again. And this time I was like a detective. Like I was curious, extremely curious. If I could figure out my emotional magnets, motivators, then probably I could figure out others. And so I started going to these networking events. And what happened, and I really want to be clear on this, and stay with me in the chat here. Let me know that you're getting value from this and that you're having fun with me here. the thing that I want you to really walk away from is that I shifted the conversation. Thank you. Thank you. I shifted the conversation from what do I say to what can I learn about people? And that shift was profound because what happened was I started to ask memorable questions. I started to be curious and enjoy meeting new people. I wasn't in the bathroom anymore. I was out meeting people, connecting, and they were saying to me, "Hey, I never had a question like that before. Interesting." And we had really memorable conversations. And what happened was my network started to grow. And so using the tools that I'm sharing with you today, the 3 tools, in very short order, my business grew from my bedroom to a top 100 fastest growing company in BC because I was becoming magnetic. Now, I share that with you, not from a place of ego. I share it with you to really reinforce the point that our attention is always being magnetized. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're writing your or preparing your sales and your marketing strategies. So the first way that we're going to be magnetic is to understand the emotional magnets, to learn them, and to be able to be really clear on what they are. And I'm betting, as I go through the 4 emotional magnets, that you're going to have, names of friends and family and coworkers. They're going to burst in your head like popcorn when you hear them. And you'll also be able to identify your emotional magnet or magnets and be able to put that into play right away in your sales, in your marketing, and even in your relationships. So I want to reinforce the fact that, again, we are so preoccupied. So imagine we're driving along the road and you see a billboard and you just kind of let it go. And then another billboard, and then another. And then finally you see a billboard and you read that message on the billboard. It broke through your preoccupation, your thought flow. Why is that? The reason is because it connected to what you emotionally need to hear, what you actually need emotionally. So there are 4 emotional magnets. And I want you to think of, as I said, I'd love you to try and figure out yours, and I have a resource later for you to do that as well. But also, you may realize why your relative does that crazy thing that they do or annoys you, and maybe even have empathy for them after this. So the 4 emotional magnets are the reasons that you act, react, and feel the way that you do. Think of it as your emotional trigger, right? And these are developed as early as 6 years of age. And they're developed based on your life experience, your upbringing experience, the environment you were raised in, your values, your situation, and your obstacles you've overcome. And so typically we have 1 or 2 emotional magnets that drive our decisions. And so when I realized that these emotional magnets, I thought, okay, I got to make this easier for people to understand. The emotional appeal theory and Garn's book was a little bit technical, and I started describing it to people and started fumbling. And so I thought, okay, this has to be simpler. As a marketer, of course, you can't transfuse that out of your blood. I turned it into an acronym, and I called it SAVE, S-A-V-E. Now, I want you to think of these 4 emotional magnets as a 4-lane highway, and each of us is driving in one of the lanes. So think of it as they stand for safety, achievement, value, and experience. And most of us will stick to one lane, right? Sometimes we'll swerve between the lanes, but predominantly we tend to stick to one. And so, this had been so successful in my networking experience and growing my network that I thought to myself, I'm going to try it in my sales prospecting. So I looked through a shipping magazine, and basically I was looking for a really bad ad, someone that needed my help. And it didn't take me long to find one. And so there was one that, I thought, oh yes, I will definitely repeat the acronym, SAVE, S-A-V-E, safety, achievement, value, and experience. You will have it. I'm going to go through it a few times. You will understand it for sure. But thank you for your question. So emotional magnets in action, I said, okay, I'm going to pull an ad. And it was it definitely needed my help because it was terrible. I mean, seriously, it looked like the advertising equivalent of a home haircut. Okay. So I found this rope supplier and I'm using the 4 emotional magnets. Here's what I wrote. So I said to them, hello, Donaldson Ropes. Here are some suggestions that you can use in your future ads to be more effective. Safety. I said, added my credibility that I had 25 years of experience in marketing and communication. And so achievement. I added that, look, if you use the complimentary suggestions that I'm providing you right now, you're certainly going to get an increase in your ROI on your ad spend. Value. And then I ended the email by saying, I had just left the corporate world to create my own consultancy as a single mom. Experience. I gave them 2 dates and I asked for a meeting. Just 17 minutes later, I received a reply inviting me to come meet with them. So I met them, we connected, they became clients of mine for 10 years. But what's interesting, and I want to point out, is that I asked them in that first meeting, what was it that motivated you to actually have me come and meet with you? And she said, every day, Sandy, we get requests from suppliers every single day. But for some reason, I read your email and it just connected with me and I had to meet you. This stuff works. So let's dig into them. And I'm going to hold questions just because I want to keep to time and make sure that I honor the time that I've been given. But certainly there's ways to follow up with me and I'm going to be around all day. So we're going to network and get to know one another. So hold those questions, but please provide comments to help people get excited and put some emojis and things like that. Let's amp up the energy here. That's awesome. This community is just so solid. So there are 4 emotional magnets and let's dig into them. I want you to listen for what you think your emotional magnet might be. So the first is safety. So if you're motivated by the safety emotional magnet, you are motivated by security, by structure, by planning, by boundaries. You are typically very skilled in what you do, might work in service to others. Your priority is self-preservation and health, and your family is your number 1 priority. Now, you're so concerned with safety and security and making sure things have a contingency plan that you have emergency supplies. Heck, you may even have them in the trunk of your car in case of a zombie apocalypse. So who here thinks they have the safety emotional magnet or knows someone with it? Go ahead and put the word safety in the chat, please. All right, let's see. Yeah, we've got that. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you, Deliz. That's so nice to say. So yes, so we've got some people, and see how fast it is that you can detect this. It's going to change your life, I'm telling you. So the second emotional magnet is achievement. And so if you're motivated by the achievement emotional magnet, well, you are motivated by performance, by drive, by challenge, your pride, your opinion, and you'll stop at nothing to be successful. And in fact, you expect to get awards and recognition along the way. You emotionally need that. You're a thought leader, you're a goal setter, and you are focused on creating change in your industry or in the world. So who here thinks that they have the achievement emotional magnet or knows someone with it? Yeah, we had achievement in there before we even achieved the word in the chat before I even asked. That's awesome. And you know what's interesting? I will give you many examples, so you will see. But when you think about achievement also, people really who have the achievement emotional magnet, they need recognition. So let's give them a couple emojis in the chat for these people that say they have the achievement. Me too, one of mine is achievement. So it's very welcome to get feedback from you on how this is landing. All right. Third emotional magnet is value. So if you have the value emotional magnet, you're motivated by worth, by growth. I mean, who wouldn't want a bathtub of money, right? But you're really committed to preventing waste and focused on environment. What's really important to you is the return on your investment of time and money. And so you think of time, your time, as your most valuable asset. Quality is extremely important to you. And you are either working on or planning or about to deliver a legacy. You want something to live on and be valuable after you're gone. So who here thinks they have the value emotional magnet or knows someone with it? Go ahead and put value in the chat. Let's see how many of us are on the call that have value. Yes. And you may find that you have 1 or 2. I mean, I have 2. And so thank you for playing along. This really makes it an enjoyable experience for everybody. So the fourth one, of course, is experience. And so if you have the experience emotional magnet, well, you you are so curious. You probably already stalked me online, bought my book, listened to the audiobook, or just basically we're here on time, ready to go because you want the experience. So if you're motivated by experience, then what that looks like is, or sorry, if you have the experience emotional magnet, you're motivated by curiosity. You're motivated by progress, by desire, and by creativity. So you are a learner. You love to learn. You're grabbing resources everywhere to keep expanding and learning. And you are always wanting change, something new, something bright, something fresh. Your motto is really like, what's next, right? What's happening next? So you're always looking for that feeling and experience that you're going to have in life. And so who here thinks they have experience? Yeah, a couple people in the chat. That's awesome. You're already on top of it, you know, and where I'm going. Yes, you can have them all, but I'll explain. But the thing is, there's different degrees, right? So again, remember, these are developed when you're young and it's built on your experiences. So you'll see a couple examples I'll be giving shortly and it will help fall into place. So, and I have experience as one of my emotional magnets. So I have achievement and experience. And, you know, it shows up everywhere in my life and it always has. And it was when I read that book, I realized, right? So the thing is, I can be a bit of a challenge to be around because of that, right? So, you know, and even so, my company name is Next, for goodness sake. All right. And I also am going to blow your minds a little bit more because emotional magnets, they show up in your personal relationships too. So, you know, a while ago, both my husband and I were working late and he came in and he said, well, let's just order some dinner. So I pick up the app and I'm scrolling through and I'm thinking, okay, one of his magnets is safety. So I'm like, okay, I'll pick something that he is in his comfort zone, something he likes. So I'm scanning through and I'm like, oh, Freshie. Okay, he loves Freshie burritos. So I turn to him and I say, Chris, how about Freshie for dinner? And he looks back at me and he says, no. And I was like, wait, you love their burritos. What's going on? And he's like, yeah, I really do. But they're 3 blocks away, Sandy. And so now I'm like puzzled. What is going on? And then I looked at him and then I realized, his other emotional magnet is value. He can't validate a delivery from being sent 3 blocks from our home, right? So I smile. You know, these are conversations we have all the time in our lives. And I smile and I say to him, okay, honey, I get it. I understand you. I know what you emotionally need. But I'm just curious, how far does it have to be for us to have the food delivered? You know? And he says 5 blocks. So, okay, we end up ordering food from 6 blocks away. And he's happy because he's had the expense validated value. And I'm happy because it's a new restaurant. So I'm having a new experience. And these are the types of conversations that we have in our life all the time. So many relationships we can save, SAVE, when we understand why someone emotionally does what they do. We end up having more empathy for them, less judgment for them, and we just understand that's what makes them happy. That's what they emotionally need. So I want you to think about how valuable this could be in your sales, in your marketing, with your team. Do you know what their emotional magnets are? Do you know what you need to say to them to break through their preoccupation and have them actually want to listen and act to what you say? Just gonna scroll through the chat here. We're good. I got lots of emojis. Thank you so much. So this very powerful thing, words have power. We need to remember that because it's essential. When you connect to people's emotional motivators with your messaging, and we're going to get into that, then you have a connection and you become magnetic. Now, those are the 4 emotional magnets. We're going to go through them again. You'll hear them again, but I always get asked this question. After I share the emotional magnets, people always ask, okay, Sandy, I kind of have an idea what mine is, but what do I do with a new client? Or what do I do with my team? Like, how do I figure out what theirs is? And this is the second way to be magnetic, and that's to ask a third question. So this is a extremely powerful tool. I love it. It's one of my favorites. because it's a quick way to be able to grow your business and to create magnetic connection. So one of the most effective ways that we have to communicate with people is through questions, right? To create a genuine connection with someone, we need to be interested in them. We need to find out information. So this is where if you ask a provocative third question in a conversation, it's easier to create a connection. Remember what I said, you want to shift your mindset from what do I say to what can I learn about these people? And when you do that, it's unbelievable. I added this in because I love this quote. Sean McPhee says it best. There are no uninteresting people, just disinterested listeners. And research has found, in the work that I've done and the research over the years, research has found that when we work to become more likable, like to like more people, to actually engage with people, communicate with people, not be hiding in the bathroom, then what happens is we become more likable ourselves. So what I found in networking is that you end up going to these events and most people stop asking questions after the second question. You know, they're like, hi, I'm Sandy, and what do you do? And they say, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I do. And then they run out of gas. And so when you ask a third question, a provocative one, a question that they don't expect, that they can't automatically spout out a response, what happens if you're actively listening to them and your body language, as Mark says, is really on point, then you're going to make someone feel seen and heard. And that's a genuine connection. They will remember you. So the other thing I wanted to share here is my mentor, Dale Carnegie, says it best. He says, you can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in others than you can in 2 years trying to get people interested in you. See, the key here is to be interested in people, not interesting in yourself. It's not about you. It's about others. And when you start looking for their emotional magnets, that's the way to do it. So what's the third question? Okay, so a third question is an open-ended question. It's, you know, something that we know what that is because we're talking about communication, but essentially it's not going to get a reply of 1 or 2 words. It's going to take your conversation further in any direction. So your open-ended question is, or sorry, your third question is not, you know, how was your weekend? How was your day? Please stop saying how was your day. Ask something else as a third question. And I can talk to you in networking about that. So you're not asking, how was your day? How was your weekend? What do you do? How long have you worked there? No, that's not a third question. A third question is one they don't expect. A third question is one like, what surprised you about the weekend? Why did you choose to go into that industry? Why did you leave swimsuit modeling to become a communication coach, right? So, and you will know when you ask a third question because you'll actually see people light up. They will be excited to answer your question. Very rarely do people ask interesting questions at these types of events. And think about that. It's not just networking. It's in your sales meetings. It's in your marketing. So open-ended questions, third questions are key. And let me give you an example so I can walk you through it. And this is how you can see how the emotional magnets also come into play in a sales situation. So Appleton Estate Rum, the Jamaica Rum, was entertaining the idea of hiring my marketing agency to work with them. So they said, okay, Sandy, we're going to meet in Whistler at the base of the mountain and a bar at happy hour. It was the loudest meeting I've ever had. And it was here where I would either win or lose the business. And, you know, I was nervous. It was crazy. And so the VP of marketing, he has us all do a round of rum shots, right? And he says, okay, Sandy, why should we work with you? And actually it was more like, why should we work with you? And I was like, working with us is easy. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but you know, it was super loud. And, you know, so I responded back using the 4 emotional magnets. I said, working with us is easy with our proven systems and our experience. Safety. We have years of experience and we create award-winning industry leaders, brands, achievement. You know, we're a small agency, so working with you, I mean, it would be probably way less than what you're spending with your existing agency right now, value. And I said to him, and we are super creative and a blast to work with, experience. Now it's my turn to ask him the second question. So I said to him, what does a successful marketing agency look like to you? Like, this is one of my favorite questions. It's definitely the achievement magnet in me. And over the screaming of the bachelorette party that's beside me, he says, well, I'm pretty happy with them. I mean, we've had a few bumps in our communication. Bumps in communication. Bingo, right? Now is the time to ask him a third question, a question that he doesn't expect. So I say to him, why are you so passionate about your rum? And that's what broke them open. I spent the next 2.5 hours talking to each of the team members and finding out why they love their rum. And that sparked my creativity. And by the end of the night, I had a new client. I had a tour lined up of the distillery in Jamaica and a ringing in my ears that still hasn't quite gone away. But it was worth it. That third question, it had me stand apart from the competition. The third question is such a powerful tool that when you use it, it will deepen your engagement and it will make you come across as magnetic. Now, I want you to imagine what would happen if you allowed emotional magnets to guide you, with your prospective clients, with your team, even in your relationships. Do you know what their emotional magnets are? Now, before I get into the third question, or the third tool, I should say, I want to ask you a quick question. So my mission is to help people to communicate more effectively and successfully in their organizations and with themselves in their relationships. So it's important to me that I understand, and also because I have achievement as my emotional magnet, that you receive value from here. So if you've got a nugget from what I've shared so far, or you're having a fun experience, go ahead in the chat and please put yes. So I know, and I'm getting a sense that you're getting value from the content that I'm sharing with you today. Okay, yes, I'm getting some yeses. Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate it. Immense. Wonderful. That's wonderful. So excellent. So I'm going to ask you for your help, please, because I go on stages across North America. I have a bunch of different talks. But it's really important to me that it's landing and that it's conversational and that actually it's providing value. So I'm going to ask you to please fill out, it's less than 2 minutes, like tiny little form. By scanning this QR code and putting in that link with the word magnets, I'm really delighted to give you the quiz. So this is an exclusive quiz because it's only included in my book or my audiobook on Audible, right? So it's a bonus for you. As soon as you answer those questions and give me your feedback, you get that download. And what's interesting is that, I've had people say to me, this thing has saved marriages. It's actually, the 4 emotional magnets are being trained in academic curricula. So it's fascinating. And what I think is if you download it, then you can print it and you sit down and you go through it with the people in your life. And I'm telling you, it's just going to make so much sense why they make the choices they do. So let's take 2 minutes right now, checking in on the time here. We should be on, we're on track. If you could take that time right now, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. So let's move on to the final one that we're going to go through, which is the third way to be magnetic, and that's crafting the messaging. So now we know about the emotional magnets. We know how to get the response and figure out what emotional magnet people have by asking a third question. And now we want to talk about crafting the messaging. So this is, I'm just going to check and make we're okay on timing here. Perfect. So this is critical. So what I want to do is I want to show you some examples, right? In advertising, they've been doing this for years. They just didn't have the language to call it, like the label to call it emotional magnetism. So here's an example of a whole package, a cluster of ads. And I want you in the chat to guess what emotional magnet are they trying to appeal to here? So this is messaging in here that's connecting to a specific emotional magnet, safety, achievement, value, or experience. And what's happening is they're using these words here to help connect. And so your language, leveraging language is absolutely critical to understand what's happening here. So when you look at find your greatness, stand out, ultimate, these are some of the words that you can use to connect. And so what we're looking at here is we're looking at achievement. Achievement, because you're saying the people, if I was a salesperson, I'd be saying, you know what, this is the ultimate driving machine. You are so great. You deserve this. You've been working so hard. Remember that achievement, that recognition. You can be a force, stand out. Those are the messages that people respond to who are driven by achievement. Let's go on to another one here. So this is another cluster of ads. And you can see that people are starting to use some imagery here as well, not necessarily words, and they're just as powerful, visuals. So if you look at this and you say, okay, what emotional magnet are they attracted to here? What are they trying to connect to here? And here's some of the words. If I was a salesperson, I would say, this is easy. You can save time, you can save money, this is better for the environment. And what that's doing is it's actually connecting to people with the value emotional magnet. Yeah, got that right. Perfect. And then let's go on to the third one here. And this is interesting because what's happening is they're using visuals that are, they're using visuals that instead of words. I mean, look at Durex. Durex's ad is hilarious because, well, it's just so effective. It's also could be value, right? So it could be both. And most ads will have 4 emotional magnets in them because there's more likelihood that you're going to connect with people. So you can see that it's talking about health, it's talking about safety, environment, even the dog that's there, which says resist the stare, is a family member. So it's important to you. It's hitting your emotional needs, your motivators. And yes, we've got the last one, of course, experience. Apple has this nailed, creating a creative experience. And this is where you start seeing messaging that really tells a story, paints a picture, right? I love these ads, and we feel it. Like I love the Porsche ad as well. Yeah, it's funny, eh, Rick? And this is really painting that picture of the future. What does that look like? So this is why people are walking around, lining up around the block to get that iPhone, right? They're driven by experience. Now, I know you're probably thinking, how do I make this happen in AI? Well, I'm happy to tell you, ChatGPT has been trained in emotional magnetism. So here's an example. I did it quickly and short just so I could put it on the screen for you. Here's a sales email that I would send out saying, if I'm doing my communication, leadership, or emotional intelligence training, please identify the results for the specific magnet. So you can see how that content would talk to and connect with one, similar to how I did it with the ropes client. Now, there's a big difference between want and need, and it depends on your life stage. But when you are connecting to people's emotional motivators, their magnets, they are happy, their needs are met. And so, funny story, like if you're going to buy a car, you want to do something with it, but it's actually what you need to feel that makes you purchase it. Funny story, when I was getting my divorce, I went to the car lot and I went with the intention to buy a Jeep, and I wanted that adventure. But when I was really focused on safety, of course, at that time, and I drove off the lot in a Ford Escape. No joke, true story. So what I want you to do is think about your customers, your clients, your team, your loved ones, and understand what their emotional magnets are. If you're selling or pitching something, you need to craft that message to connect to those magnets. If you don't know what they are, include all 4. But if you do know what they are by asking in your initial call with them and figuring out the needs assessment, what's motivating them, well, then you leverage that in your marketing messaging. Because what you want to do, it's never about you, right? Marketing and sales is never about you. It's about the benefit and the needs that the person has that you're selling to. And so you want to give them their reason to act and listen. And you can start this today. In our networking right now, you can go in and ask someone a deeper third question, and you will have a solid, memorable connection by the end of the day. So when you speak to people's emotional magnets, not only are you heard and understood, you're able to understand what people truly need and how to deliver it. So don't tell people what you want to tell them. Tell them what they emotionally need to hear. And go be magnetic. Thank you very much.